Years ago, I used to teach workshops for Demographics Now, the largest demographics company in the country, so I'm very familiar with census data. I write a lot of business plans for startup facilities and use a lot of that demographics knowledge. And a thorough demographics package is definitely necessary to analyze a potential market and show that the area has enough of the type of member that you are targeting in order to support the club. The carrier route report, though, goes a little deeper. So, what is a carrier route report and why does a club need to run one? Well, back in the day when an actual mailman walked a route, the route that he walked is the carrier route and the mailman was the carrier. As population increased, it became more cost effective to have a carrier cover several routes driving a vehicle, but even now the same principle is applied and areas are still broken up into smaller routes even though a single carrier may cover more than one route. As I mentioned earlier, demographic studies have their place, but they're based on the last census taken and then projected forward. And even though the projections are based on over 100 years of analyzed data and are pretty accurate, they still are just a projection. Whereas a carrier route report is updated by the post office every 3 months, and it will show short-term growth, newly built neighborhoods, and revitalization projects. Carrier route reports became very popular when we used to run a lot of direct mail for clubs. But we don't do a whole lot of direct mail anymore because the response rate isn't what it used to be. It might be worth a test in your club though, because every market's different. But if you don't get a response initially, it just costs too much to use it to build up a presence in a community. However, we still do some targeted marketing through the post office's Every Door direct mail program and some guerrilla marketing like door hangers where we are targeting certain neighborhoods in town. We need to see where those neighborhoods are in relation to the club, the number of houses in them, and the income. To do this, we need to run a carrier route report that is sorted by distance from the club. The second reason a club needs to run a carrier route report is to determine pricing. In the workshop, we do a very detailed membership pricing section that is broken down based on the different types of memberships sold and how to present them in the club. In the workshop, Tom gives an outline of what a club's pricing should be for each particular demographic. However, he doesn't go into how we come to those numbers. After tracking and analyzing hundreds of clubs over the years and their demographics, we have come to a pretty extensive formula to determine pricing in a market that is just way too complicated to cover in the seminar. But whether you do the detailed demographic study or you just follow the outline that we describe in the workshops, your pricing structure is based on only the top 40% of your market. In order to do this, obviously, we need to know who the top 40% is. In this case, we need to run a carrier route report that is sorted by income and then calculate the top 40%. This is what a carrier route report looks like sorted by distance. What your target distance will really be is determined by the type of club that you have. A traditional club, a $10 a month club, a hybrid club, or a personal training / functional training club all have different markets. As a rule of thumb, we generally start out with a 5-mile radius. If you're in a population-dense city like New York, we would do a certain block radius rather than miles. If you're in a rural community, we might do a drive time. And we also pay particular attention to natural boundaries. So at the top, you'll see a number of headings. We have zip code, route, city, SFDU, which is single family dwelling unit, MFDU, which is multiple family dwelling unit, and then the total of those two. We have average household income, median house value, DFO, which is distance from origin or distance from the club, and then accum, which is short for accumulation, which means that each line is accumulated as you go down the list. So the first line is 635, then added to the 687 of the second line, which equals 1322, and so on. And as we go down the list, we get farther and farther away from the club, which in this case is a 5-mile radius, and the accumulation is 42,653 households in that 5 miles. And this is what a carrier route report looks like sorted by income. So you'll see the first row has a low income of 29,853. That's a little low for any market. But as we go down, you'll see the income levels go up. So what we do is we go all the way to the very top which in this case is 131,000 income, and we pick the top 40%. So when I run this report, I sort it by income, and then I cut out the top 40% and calculate it for you. So right here, this line is where your top 40% starts. So your minimum in this market is 63,000, and then your maximum is 131,000. So your average in the top 40% is 84,023, and your average household value is 211,093. So these are the numbers that we're using in order to determine what your pricing should be. And when we run carrier route reports for a client, generally we automatically will run both. Now when you run your carrier route report, you should also get a map. And that map should have circles on it that determine either drive time or distance from the club. So right here we have a red dot in the center, that's the club. The first circle is a 1 mile, the second circle is a 3 mile, and the third circle is a 5 mile. And what's nice about this is, say you have a neighborhood that you want to target and you know what street that neighborhood is on. You can zoom in and you can find out which carrier route that particular neighborhood is in, and then you can look it up on the report. So if we just pick a random carrier route, say C013, and then go to your report and do a search for C013, this line right here is C013, and it shows you that there's 555 households in that carrier route. The average income is 35,000, and the median house value is 73,000. So if we go back to the map, it shows all of the carrier routes that are in that target market. How often should you run a carrier route report? Well, if you're in an area like a small town that doesn't have a lot of new development going on, once a year is probably sufficient. Most markets, you should run one every 6 months. And if you're in an area where a lot of new neighborhoods are going up and you're doing a lot of pound the ground marketing, you may want to run one every 3 months. So I think I've covered pretty much everything in relation to carrier route reports, but if you have any further questions about them or you need to run one for your area, feel free to give us a call.